أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه، ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له، ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله أدى الأمانة وبلغ الرسالة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه الله اليقين. ابتعثه الله ليخرج العباد من عبادة العباد لعبادة رب العباد، ومن ضيق الدنيا لسعة الدنيا والآخرة معا، ومن جور الأديان إلى عدل الإسلام. اللهم اجزه عنا خير ما جزيت به عن خير. We praise Allah. We praise Allah, the one true God, and we praise Him again together. And we ask Him His help and His forgiveness. And we ask Him for sincerity in our words and deeds. And we ask Him to send His peace and His blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, and all the prophets before him, and all the prophets who came with the same message before him, and all those who follow in His footsteps until the day of resurrection. Whomever Allah guides is truly the one who's guided. And whomever rejects His guidance, you'll never find for him guardian or guide. And I bear witness that there's nothing worthy of worship or direction or submission except the one true God, Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, is His messenger and His final prophet, that He sent with His truth and light, so that He may liberate the entire human family. He could free us out of being enslaved to one another, being enslaved to false gods, to be emancipated to the servitude of the one true God alone, and from the constraint of believing that all there was to live for was this life, all there was to chase was material gains in this life, to the vastness that comes with knowing that this life is a stop to decide what our end result is in our existence, the eternal existence, which our soul makes us stop in the shortest part of it on this earth. And from the injustice that comes with making decisions based on a biased point of view, based on our own whims and desires, based on what's best for me or for us, to the justice and freedom and emancipation that comes with divinely guided decision-making, with ethically centered decision-making, with decision-making based on understanding the knowledge of the one who created everything, and understanding what are the morals that He designed for us to live by and to govern ourselves by. So may Allah, the one true God, give Muhammad peace and blessings upon him the best reward that He's given a prophet and messenger for His nation. Last 2 weeks ago, we talked about the concept of how important this family unit is. How important it is when we talk about nation building, and we talk about making an impact in our society, in our city. Not just an impact to where we have a better Muslim community among ourselves, which we absolutely need, but the fact that this faith is a faith about reforming the human family, about helping the human family realize its potential, realize how honored it is to be the reform change agent for this earth and for this world. That in doing that, the critical and most important unit is the individual as part of the family unit. That the family unit is what builds society. That's what builds community. And if the family is broken, then the community is broken, and society is broken. Even if we sweep the problems under the rug, we know it's broken. We know from inside our own homes, from the homes of the people closest to us, and we know from the fact that on a grand scale, everyone's willing to talk about everyone else's problems except their own, but we know the problems are there. And that family unit, we started last week, or last time, with the primary accountable person, the primary accountable individual of that family unit. My beloved brothers came up to me afterwards and they said, you better do justice to us in the next time that you talk, because the whole time was spent talking about the role of the husband and the role of the father. And frankly, it wasn't enough. I wish it could be 5 or 6 hours of sessions of talking about what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a father. How our beloved, peace and blessings upon him, was a husband and a father. How those around him learned to be better husbands and fathers. How our nation needs male role models, like the ones that our faith inspires us to be. And how if we were those role models, we wouldn't need to yell at our kids, because they would look up to us and want to be like us in our seeking of God, in our actions, in our private lives, in our seeking of God, in our treatment of people. Yes, they would still have their mishaps, but they would look up to us and want to be like us. So if we strive for ourselves, and I'll conclude the part about the husband and the father, if we strive for ourselves and remember that as soon as that moment was over, that we ended the sermon, and all of us went about our separate ways to go to our homes and to our businesses, that night was the first attempt and attack by Satan in each one of our homes. All of us know that night when we made the intention that I'm going to change the way I'm treating my wife, I'm going to change the way I'm treating my children, tonight, Satan came forth with his full armor. All the demons showed up to tell you why tonight wasn't the night you have to be that nice. Because everything started to change. Because now scrutiny was on you. So you have to fight through that. We pick ourselves up. We're going to slip and we're going to go to old habits. We pick ourselves up. And when I talk today about the role of the mother and the wife, what's going to happen is it's going to be hard to change old habits. It's going to be hard to do some of the things that I'm going to talk about for my sisters. It's going to be hard for my brothers to hear these things and then not go home and say, why aren't you giving me these things? Because we're so used to old habits. But remember that one step at a time is how we change ourselves and how we can change our nation. It doesn't all come in one night. We don't hear a story and that fantastical picture become reality for us because we want it. We have to work for it. And just like when you're trying to clear up a metal, and you're trying to pull out a pure aluminum, you have to put it through a whole lot of heat. When you're making stainless steel, you have to put that iron through the highest level of heat. I'm a chemical engineer, so I'm giving you a chemical analogy. And the reality is that if you don't do that, you will have impurities. And if you don't want the heat, you can't ask for that pure level of stainless steel. So don't expect that you reach that pure level without a little bit of heat. And when you feel the heat, don't give up. Don't stop the process of purification. Pick yourself up, dust yourselves off, hug each other, hold hands, pray together that night, and give grace to one another in the effort to model a better husband and wife, father and mother for your children. And if you're alone and your spouse doesn't want any of it, remember that some of the people and examples that we talk about are one individual, and the other is not sharing the values yet. And sometimes it lasts like that for the whole lifetime. That doesn't mean it's time to break the family up. Sometimes it may mean that, but that's not the solution. That's what's called the very last resort. And too often, our community, within the Muslim community, and outside the Muslim community, the first solution people seek is divorce. In fact, it's so common today that just as many people stay married in our society as people get divorced. Divorce is not forbidden in our faith, but it is not the solution if you think that values aren't shared. It is a final resort. And chances are that whatever you're feeling is the cause of agony in the home is 50% your fault. Chances are that whatever new situation you put yourself in, you will have similar problems. They may not look exactly the same, but they will still be problems because that purification process is for all individuals in the family. It's very important to remember this as we talk about the ideal that we're striving for together. So again, I want to remind my brothers first that we start with ourselves And as we hear this role model from my sisters, it's for us to be, those of us who aren't wives and mothers, to be messengers to our loved ones, to be reminders to our loved ones, not to point fingers as to what they're not doing, but to appreciate what they are doing of this, and to commend and encourage what more we want to see, and to give grace. Because the family should be that source of inspiration. The children should feel the inspiration, should feel that the lack of giving them the energy of creativity and change that they need in their lives. Not that they come home and that's where the agony is. There's a few things that are the duties of the wife, or the obligations of the wife. And today, as I mentioned some of these things, some people will misunderstand how these are supposed to be applied. Because for so long, there's been cultural ways of describing these learnings for us. And so we've understood them in a very different way than we should understand them. So as I say them, don't look at them with a prejudicial eye that you've heard this content before. I want you to hear it and try to understand how you should apply it in the context that we're in. The first one is that the beloved peace and blessings upon him be said, that if a woman, and this is Sahih Hadith, if a woman prays her 5 prayers, fasts the month of Ramadan, obeys her husband, and protects her chastity, she will be told on the day of resurrection, enter from whatever gate of paradise you wish. Yes, the word obeys her husband is in. Contextually, what it means, and just like a CEO has to obey the chairman of the board, when the board makes a decision, the CEO has to follow the mandate of the board. The CEO still has a lot of say in what direction is taken by the company. But in terms of the execution, there's a mandate given by the chairman of the board and by the board. And so, similar to a CEO and chairman relationship, similar to a CEO and COO relationship, there is the final decision making, as we talked about last time. That burden lands on the father and the husband for the family. That is the given default by God because of the obligation on the man to support the family with the proper material means. That obligation means that comes with it the responsibility to make the right decisions, the right final decisions. But that is only informed properly with the consultation and shura process. Once that process is healthy, where there's a voice given by the wife, and there's the opinions taken, and there's the proper discussion as co-leaders of the family, the final decision must be abided by. So if there happens to be a disagreement in opinion, it is not okay for a woman to go about a decision that is against the final wishes of the husband. This is a clear mandate from our faith. This is not something that is differentially understood by different cultures in the faith, in the divine message since the beginning of time. Leadership of the home is for the husband. The obligation of fulfilling that leadership properly is upon the husband, and the obligation of administering that leadership with the proper process of consultation with the other partner is on the husband to ensure that the voice is heard. Obedience does not mean submissiveness. Again, obedience does not mean submissiveness. What do I mean by that? Aisha radiallahu anha, in the famous story that many of you know, when she heard the news that a grievous lie, a slanderous lie was being spread about her, and she went to her parents' home, and the revelation stopped. And the Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, didn't know what the answer to that lie was. He eventually received revelation, honoring her, exonerating Aisha of the lie. And she was in the home of her father. And he goes to visit his best friend, her father, and he tells her of the revelation. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, it's a long story, she says, and the revelation comes to him as he's in their home. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is so happy. He had the worst month, that month that people were slandering his daughter. People were affecting his relationship with the Prophet. the lie was spreading around the whole city. And so he's so excited by the news, and he says to her, won't you get up and hug your husband and thank him for this great exoneration? She says, I will never thank him. I will thank Allah, the High and Exalted, who exonerated me. The Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, the man that he was, he was happier with her saying that than he would have been if she thanked him. Because he realized that his wife has the faith in Allah that the mother of believers should have. So, if it was the submissiveness that Aisha displayed, she would have immediately been humbling to the Prophet ﷺ, but she realized that obedience is not the same as submissiveness. Obedience is for God. That obedience doesn't mean no voice. Obedience doesn't mean no choice. On the contrary, obedience is that when the final decision is made, then that decision is followed by all parties. And it's accepted. And there isn't a finger pointing later if the decision happened to be not the ideal decision. There isn't, I told you so later, if it happens to be that the advice given was better advice than the decision made. Because that's not how we grow together. And that brings us to the next point. The duty of a wife. With the compassion, as we said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. He made between you love and compassion. Love and compassion. The scholars, as they analyze the verse, they say that the primary responsibility of the compassion is on the husband. To be merciful, to be compassionate, to let go of things that may otherwise be made into big deals. And the primary role of love is upon the wife and the mother, because she has more capacity for love. God by default gave women more capacity for love. And so that capacity for love will emanate in the home. So that capacity for love should show in a couple of ways. It's much easier to show to the children, because it's natural for a mother to show her children love. But what's not natural sometimes is when your husband comes home from a working day, or you haven't seen each other, you've been traveling and he's been traveling, to take him into your arms like you're seeing him for the first time in months, to smile when you see him like someone that you love from your family that you haven't seen in a long time, even if you just saw him that morning. That feeling that a man gets, the same feeling that he got when he was 10 years old and his mother was proud of him, that feeling doesn't change no matter how old a man gets. And that feeling that only a woman can give a man, that's the feeling that a wife can give to her husband. Only a wife can give her husband. And that feeling becomes a strong foundation for the home. Because what it does is it instills love that then emanates the rest of that day. It starts with that love. The first thing that happens when a person walks in the home, one of the spouses walks in the home, is that each of the spouse will see the thing wrong inside the home. The woman will see the one thing that needs to be fixed that the husband hasn't yet fixed. The husband will see the one thing that's messy, and they'll start to notice the bad things around the house. That's human nature. And it's not just human nature. The Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, told us there's a demon waiting. When one spouse is entering the home, there's a demon waiting with the special role of pointing out problems to you that you can complain about to your spouse. The Prophet ﷺ said that the one who doesn't complain, the one who is grateful, the one who shows that love, will be entered into whatever gate of paradise she wishes. And so, the example of this can be seen in many of the wives of the companions, many of the wives that have shown that example of a wife. In fact, standing by your husband, showing him the love, doesn't only happen when he's not doing that, when he's not doing what you want. It also comes about even if you're not especially excited about his choices. An example of this was shown to us by the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ himself. And of all things that her husband did, Zaynab bint Muhammad. Zaynab bint Muhammad was married to a man named Al-As ibn Rabi'a. Al-As ibn Rabi'a was an amazing man. They fell in love with each other. But Al-As ibn Rabi'a chose not to follow the father, the Prophet, peace be upon him. He came back from travel one day after the Prophet had shared his mission, alayhi salatu wasalam. And Zainab bint Muhammad told her husband, my father has come forth with a message from God, and I'm following. And after he heard the news from Quraysh, he said, you'll have to excuse me. I can't follow, because they'll say that I left the religion of my forefathers for my wife. And I don't want people to talk about it. Zainab did not leave her husband. May God be pleased with him. In fact, she didn't leave him for a decade. And she had to stand by, knowing that Al-As ibn Rabi'a fought against her father, the Prophet of God. Now, some of you might think to yourself that no man has done what my husband has done, or the mistakes he's done. No one's as mean as my husband. No one points out faults as much as my husband. Maybe Al-As ibn Rabi'a was nice to Zainab, and so you'll say to yourself, well, they were in love. That's why she was able to excuse that for him. And by the way, he eventually accepted the faith and became a warrior supporting the Prophet, peace and blessings upon him. And was one of the main people who changed the hearts of Quraysh. But the fact is that there's another woman who stood by her husband, even though her husband was actually the worst man to ever touch foot on earth. That's the Pharaoh that fought Moses, peace and blessings upon him. His wife was one of the best wives to ever walk on earth. She wasn't patient with her husband for him. She was patient with her husband for Allah. And she did not ask to change paths from the home, because what was better for the structure, what was better for the cause of God, was to keep the home together. And even though Pharaoh was one of the worst men to ever walk on earth, she still stayed patient, hoping for the best. And eventually, he killed her because of her belief in God. No woman is married to Pharaoh. And I know that sometimes some men can act like Pharaoh. I know sometimes some women can act like pharaohs in the home. But the fact is that if we promise each other that we're going to strive to the examples of these people that we have as our role models, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make easier for us the path to what He loves. Two more things that a wife should try to observe for the home. The Prophet ﷺ said that the woman should pay attention to what the husband doesn't want to enter his home. Specifically, the scholars say that it's about not allowing someone who he doesn't like enter the home. But I would like to expand the understanding that it's not just about the person that a man doesn't like. There should be a shared set of values that husband and wife agree on. A shared set of values for the home. And anything that violates those values, they are not allowed in the home. It's a violation of the marriage for some value, some thought, some concept to be entered upon the children or entered upon the home that the husband does not want. This is the right of the husband from the wife, to protect his home from the unwanted guests. And this doesn't just mean people. And the last right is to be efficient in managing finances. If the right of the woman, the right of the family that the husband spends, doesn't ask the woman, she has full right to work. And by the way, there's a hadith that is da'if, where people say, the Prophet ﷺ said that a woman shouldn't lead a people. That's not a sahih hadith. There is no basis for it in our faith. It is da'if, and there's no basis for it in making legalities. So a woman can be a leader. A woman can be employed. Of course, neglecting the upbringing of children, neglecting the home structure is not more honorable than holding the home structure together. We know from all the data now that we have that after decades of saying that the equality means that the same exact role should be done by both genders, that's not true equality. We believe in our faith, the Prophet ﷺ gave the right of ownership of property, the right of suffrage, the right of all of the things that we sought for women in our country here only 100 or 150 years ago, they were given by the Prophet ﷺ 1400 years ago. But that doesn't change that equality, doesn't mean differentiation of roles, doesn't mean uniqueness of roles. Just because a husband is the one who's responsible for financial support of the home doesn't mean he has a more honorable role. On the contrary, every righteous person that you hear about in history had a mother that raised her or raised her to be righteous. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. بارك اللهم على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. Every person who made a significant impact in this world was because there was a woman raising him or her that made a significant impact. And this is where the role of the mother enters. So, one of the most critical duties of a wife in a home that's going to be the structure, the building block of a changed nation, of a changed society, is a woman who's keen on understanding that priority isn't just making good food. Priority isn't just having a clean home and good clean laundry. Priority is first on the upbringing and the mental capacity support for the children. And this means that time has to be invested in it. In fact, Imam Shafi'i, everybody knows the name of Imam Shafi'i, but almost no one knows that he was raised by a single mother. Yes, his mother raised him alone. His father passed away before he was born. As we know, the Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, he had father figures in his life, but the mother figures, even after his mother passed away, Ayman, his caretaker that was hired by his mother, became like a mother figure to him. Musa alayhi salam, Prophet Moses, he was the amazing man and prophet that he was because of his mothers, his two mothers. His biological mother, who was willing to believe in God even though he was telling her to throw her son into a river to save him. And his mother that brought him up, his foster mother, who we just talked about, the wife of Pharaoh. The one who raised him, believing that even if he had to give up everything he had for what God loves, that's better for him. Today, the role has been confined to healthy eating, especially in our community and culturally, from a lot of places where we originally come from. The concept of making sure kids are well fed is made into the biggest deal. And food is good, food is important. Eating well is important. But when a young man doesn't have excitement for learning something, and a mother thinks of a creative way to make him more excited about learning it, instead of just smacking him or devaluing him or making him feel ashamed about who he is or what he loves and what he doesn't love, she makes an effort to make creative ways for him to want to learn. Allah will reward her for every word he learns and every word he teaches and every impact he has. The mother, by default, is honored and respected and loved the most of anyone to walk on earth. Allah gave you as a mother, gave you the status that he didn't give anyone who will ever walk on earth. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked, who should get my best treatment? He said, your mother 3 times. One time a man came to him during a time that every soldier was needed to defend Medina. And he said to him, I want to go with you to defend, but my mother doesn't want me to go.